It's parenting and family corner time right now, where we're going to be looking at autism. Autism is more spoken about, which is fantastic. I think every time we know more and more about it because there's more experts speaking about it and there's more openness in the conversations. I'm going to contribute to this openness as we speak about autism outside of just the fact that it can be a child that has autism. We also know that adults also live with it too and also have to navigate careers, relationships, also parenting, while managing the unique challenges and strengths that come with being on the spectrum. So there's so many things that you deal with when you have an autistic child as an autistic parent. Living as an autistic adult can mean facing daily hurdles of communication, social interaction, and sensory sensitivity. Today, we're going to speak to someone who does not only live with autism themselves, but is also raising a child on the spectrum. This is offering us a rare and deeply personal perspective. Kelly Eyre joins us. Kelly is a quality and pedagogy lead at Dibber International South Africa. Kelly, thank you for being brave enough and speaking to us about your experience. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's greatly appreciated.
My apologies. I'm told it's Kelly Eyre, not I. So it's Kelly Eyre
Yes,
joining us on the line.
yes.
Kelly, thank you for being brave and chatting with us about this one. Tell us more about what you do as a quality and pedagogy lead.
So as a quality lead within Dibber itself and its space, I am responsible for the curriculum that goes into our classrooms, the training of our teachers, but I do a lot more than just that. I am trying to reach as many educators as I possibly can, being someone who's on the spectrum and views the workplace and teaching in a different capacity. And I think it's a superpower in order to do that. But also be in a space that allows so much flexibility to allow change to happen.
That's fantastic. Kelly, when did you realize you had autism?
So my journey is quite unique. We had our son diagnosed at about 3.5, and about 2 years after that, I had sort of had a conversation with a new GP that I'd been seeing, and we had touched on the conversation of my son and sort of the experiences that I had been having or have had with other GPs. And it was sort of the idea of you're depressed or you have anxiety or you have a general anxiety disorder. And this new GP had sort of said to me, do you think you're on the spectrum? And I kind of put it to the back of my mind and had phoned my son's pediatrician to discuss his update and where he was. And I sort of said to him, do you believe or could you see characteristics, knowing me for how long as you have, that I might be on the spectrum? And he kind of looked at me and said to me, I've been waiting for you to ask me that for 2 years.
That's
so
unique.
It was it is unique, and it's kind of an inward reflection on my childhood and what I might have battled with or did battle with, should I say, and it presented very differently to my son. And also being female and growing up in the 90s, that was the other difficulty as well.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to talk to you about, because we're becoming more open about autism now, but you discovered this in the 90s. Did you know what they were talking about when they were making reference to your child being autistic, or you yourself being autistic yourself?
I think knowing what my son went through, there were certain characteristics of only finding out that you're autistic at 33, but kind of looking back, a lot of his behavioral difficulties I suffered with almost in silence in a way, because it was not deemed as autism, because autism is not spoken in a female capacity. It's often demarcated for boys or boys of a certain age, or they're either ADHD or presenting other difficulties. So resonating with my childhood, I kind of understood why I was so sensitive to certain areas. Knowing now what I was doing then was stimming and what that looked like for myself. So I think there's a lot of reflection in my childhood, and I kind of wish in some ways we had been more understanding of it, because I don't think it would have been as of a difficulty coming into adult life, only now knowing why I am or a portion of who I am.
Now, Kelly, these are very unique dynamics, especially seeing that you, as a parent who finds out that your own child is autistic, and then you find out that you're autistic as well. There are two things to navigate there, right? Because you're already thinking, how are you going to navigate raising a child who's on the spectrum? And once you find out that you're also on the spectrum, you also start navigating your own dynamics. And in fact, for the first time ever, starting to actually recognize your own, patterns from being on the spectrum. So how did you take on that particular challenge, making sure that you're learning more about your own child's part in the spectrum or their autism, and also trying to navigate and learn about your own autism as well?
I think the biggest part of it was learning to get over my denial. Even with my background and my experience of working with children, you kind of put it on the back end to say, this is not my child, this can't be, I'm not seeing this. And I think once getting over the denial was sort of an opening gap to understanding more of myself and being gentle and understanding that I don't want my son to ever feel the way that I felt with the lack of knowledge. So I think having those to lean on and create conversation, and sometimes there's a big gap between learning about autism, living with autism, and then integrating it into your day. So I think for me it's opening the gap of learning and understanding and being more gentle on myself, to be that I'm doing the best that I can, and knowing to everyone else that autism is different for every person that you meet. We kind of sit in this conversation where you've met one autistic individual, fantastic. That means you have met one.
Yeah.
We don't present in the same way. We don't respond in the same way. My tolerance level could be a lot lower or a lot higher than other autistic individuals. And it's just about adapting, but always creating the space for learning and knowledge, but also being gracious and grateful and gentle, that it's okay and it's more accepting, and I can be accepted for who I am, and not live behind a mask, which autism has become over the years. And that's predominantly where the term masking comes from. We hide a version of ourselves in order not for those inabilities to come out. And I've sort of taken it from the understanding of, I'd rather be celebrated for my strengths than for my weaknesses in that regard.
I love that. And this is why we call it a spectrum, right? Because it's not just one particular thing. And as you said, when you've met one person with autism, you've literally just met one, because everybody is different. Give us your life's journey as you were going through that learning process. Now that you knew that your son was autistic and then you were autistic as well, what are some of the things that you had to adjust and learn, both about your son but also about yourself?
I think it's the way that I will allow to be communicated with. And I think it's the way, because a lot of autistics, especially in my personal preference, we kind of get pushed over a little bit because of that need to fit in. So for me, the biggest thing was placing those boundaries in and not living behind it in terms of an excuse, but rather using it as a way to push forward. I have been verbally shouted at when my son has had a bad day or a bad moment at public spaces, and how to mitigate and mind that I am therefore not triggered. So for me, it was setting boundaries and also creating the space that my son will be accepted, and I will fight for that acceptance. I think another part was also admitting it to people within my professional circle, where I no longer wanted to be heard as a negative. I wanted to be heard as a positive. I am on the spectrum. I have superpowers. I love what I do in terms of what I am capable of doing. And I'm not going to step aside for an individual who might not understand it. I've always had the understanding with autism is that I'm not scared of autism. I am scared of people who don't understand autism. Sure. And that's a big grappling understanding. And I've had a lot of people who have come to me and said to me, well, I don't think when you introduce yourself, you should lead on to the idea that you're autistic, because people might see you as weak or unrelatable. And I go, well, that's your problem of autism. You're not seeing the strength that I've accomplished in terms of a professional capacity, what we have done with my son. And just automatically opening up with it has led to a lot of conversations I've had with other parents who are struggling, to be like, you don't have to shun away. You don't have to remove them. We need to create spaces where they fit. So for me, the advocacy and the boundaries and understanding that I am not perfect. I don't need to be perfect, but you can accept me for who I am, and thus accept my son. And he doesn't need to be labeled or conditioned. it should be an automatic acceptance.
All right, Kelly, we're going to take a break. We're speaking to Kelly Eyre, who is from Dibber International South Africa, a mother living with autism, with a child with autism. I'm going to speak about how you navigate those challenges. I love that you started it from the perspective point of view, your mentality and how you see yourself and how you reflect on yourself as a parent and the boundaries you created for yourself. But there's also that big challenge that you have, a challenge that you have your own autism and your child has autism. How do you navigate the two? Because you're not only taking care of your child, you also have to take care of your own needs, Kelly. We'll speak about that after the break.
Channel Africa and you have got something in common. The thirst for knowledge. Africa in Business on Channel Africa.
The United States was very vocal at the beginning of South Africa's G20 presidency, and this is largely due to strained relations with South Africa at the time, that they were not really keen on participating. Where do they stand right now?
The US is planning to take over the presidency of the G20 next year, and our understanding from them is that they intend to continue to do so, and therefore it is quite difficult then to be in a situation where you are not attending deputies' meetings or discussions during our presidency and then to take over the presidency next year. From a finance track perspective, there has been engagement. We've been working on a communique last week and this week here in Zimbabwe. What's important about that is that it's a consensus document, and so all the members in the room have to agree to the language that is used there, and our US colleagues have been part of those discussions and negotiations.
Bringing the African markets into your home. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
On the Move, weekdays, 9 a.m. to midday.
Only on Channel Africa. #On the Move.
This is a beautiful conversation in today's Parenting and Family Corner, and we're navigating really not just the challenges, but really the real life examples of autism within the family environment. Today we're speaking to someone who both is on the spectrum, the autism spectrum, but is also raised a child who has autism as well. Kelly Eyre is a pedagogy lead and quality and pedagogy lead for Dibber International South Africa, and she's been telling us her incredible story of learning about autism, learning about her child's autism, but how they've navigated not just the challenges, but life together in the family unit. Let's speak about that, life together in the family unit. You have this information now, but you are learning as you go, because like you said earlier, Kelly, one person's autism won't exactly look like another person's autism. So as you're learning your own, your own autism and how you react on the spectrum, and you're also learning your son, what have the biggest challenges been, especially if there is triggers that are happening at a similar time or at the same time between the two of you?
So we definitely do have clashes with it. His meltdowns are more physical than what mine are, and we've learned to mitigate how to assist him during that meltdown, but it does cause a lot of sensory triggers in me, which I've had to learn to navigate, because obviously we do end up butting heads in terms of that relation. And I think for me is giving him the tools of verbal communication to almost, if I am bordering an internal meltdown or I know that something is coming, to actually say to him, Aaron, my boy, you're irritating me, and that to put in that boundary for him. And a lot of parents, when I tell them this, sort of take this deep breath in and go, how can you speak to your child like that? And I sort of go, well, I want to give him the tools, sure, if that happens to him, that it's okay to say, here is my boundary, here is where my boundary lies. And then obviously helping him through that meltdown, which does often turn physical. It hasn't for a very long time, but it did initially in the beginning. Mm-hmm. So it's also then giving myself grace to internally stim, because then I deal with the guilt of carrying my own autism, not necessarily that it's guilt, but how I could have handled the situation, because I overthink consistently. I've explained to a lot of people I have 5 conversations happening in my head all at once, and only one is this current conversation that we're having. Mm-hmm. So I've had to learn to really take a step back and find that control, and then learn how to stim in other ways, but also reflecting a model that he can then carry on and deal with as well in his own situation, because that's where we want to get with autistic children, where they can internalize their regulation and where they need to be, and then to reach out for support when I need it. So I do have a lot of neurodivergent friends that I tend to lean on, where I can phone them and say, listen, my stims are becoming really good or they're becoming really bad. And often just verbalizing what I'm going through often helps me internalize it. And if I can give those tools to him, or any child for that matter, then it mitigates that meltdown. They're not always at the same time, but with work pressure, I still have 2 sons. He's only one of them. And it's also managing, you know, a personal life, a personal capacity, a professional life. So there's layers, and I kind of have to acknowledge when those stims are going to come that might lead into meltdowns, or that he might be experiencing at that level. So a lot of the time it's role modeling, it's having internal conversations that even though he's just about to turn 8, he still has the ability to communicate how he's feeling. And that's the most important. And it also gives other the indication, okay, we're heading towards a meltdown. What can we do to preempt it? We don't ever want to stop the meltdown, because you're then restricting the frustration out of the system, or what they might be internalizing. So it's more to mitigate it and to create space that he can step into with confidence, to know that he's then supported.
Yeah, you keep referring to a term that I've never heard before, and it's an interesting term that you keep repeating. It's the term stims. Could you explain it for us?
So stimming is basically how I like to internalize it. It's the body's way of finding a point of regulation. So a lot of people will stim in different ways. Some people will flick their fingers, they'll tap, their feet might go, they might hum internally. A lot of people do it, and I don't think they're aware of that. When they eat really good food, they do a little jive. It's the same thing. It's the body regulating itself, that it can almost regain self-control over its operating system. And unfortunately, it's becoming more prominent now in the understanding of autism, but sometimes stims are good. Sometimes stims are the body becoming excited about something, and we should be experiencing that joy, where other stims are a point of regulation. So for me, a lot of the time when I do interviews or I do teacher trainings, I'll often come off of that show and my headphones will go on, and I will repeat a song up to 40 times, just so that my body can regulate in its own internal processing. So stimming can look very different for everyone, and it doesn't necessarily mean that every autistic has the same type of stim.
How do you take care of yourself, Kelly? Because you are a mother, and that can be seen prematurely as a function, but you are also very much an individual, right? Who's going through this autistic journey as well. Do you have periods and moments where you have to say, I need off time just to take care of myself, and I need off time from my kids as well, so I can also just find my own space?
Definitely. And I think it comes back to that wise old term of you can't fill from an empty cup. And we do need distance, and we do need space. And often that means getting away from certain spaces or certain people. I kind of have to preempt myself a lot when I go into public spaces, especially family events and that, where I've got to remove myself at times to take care of myself, because I can't fill from that empty cup if I have nothing to share. So a lot of the time I try to find space. It doesn't necessarily mean having a hobby, but sort of like a downtime that my body can then self-regulate. And I think this is a big issue among, parents of children with autism, is we feel guilty if we even think for a moment we're allowed to walk away. And we are allowed to walk away, because we have to then model what our children then need. So yes, a lot of the time I am stepping away from things, whether that means to go have a quiet moment, to sit, to regulate, to find just a sense of calm within my own system, and then understand what my body is trying to say to me in order to mitigate the next step. I can't stop being a mom. I can't stop being there, but I need to show my son that if you don't find that time for yourself and you don't allocate it or allow it, you're not going to be the full person that you are and deserve to be. So a lot of the time I will reach out to friends or people that are within my world and have just a simple conversation of phoning a friend who I have quite a few who have autistic children themselves, and just to have an echoing board to hear that rationalization of this is okay, you're going to be okay, and you're doing the best you can with what you have.
Kelly, we have to leave it there. We've run out of time, but thank you for being kind enough to speak to us. I think there's also a level of bravery for you to do what you do, to be a parent, but also to have that kind of, you know what, I'm going to turn this situation into something positive. I'm also going to help others. Congratulations to you for living that kind of life. It's very exemplary. Where can we go to find out more about Dibber International?
So Dibber International is available on all to most platforms. It's dibber.co.za. You can have a variety look at the different branches that we have in different areas. And then you can contact us also through our PR agency, which is Lime Envelope as well. And we're just there to basically educate. We believe education systems should not work in silos, and we're there for one another to create heart for the world. So any of those platforms, you'll be sure to find us on.
Thank you so much. That's Kelly Eyre, Quality and Pedagogy Lead for Dibber International South Africa. Speaking about her experiences as a parent on the spectrum, raising a child who's also on the spectrum. Beautiful one for today's Family and Parenting Corner. 11:31 Central Africa time. Let's bring back Fikile Lungwati for our latest and final sports news for the morning.
Sports on Channel Africa.
The African perspective.